The phone rang at 3 a.m. My heart stopped. On the other end, a voice I barely knew said words that changed everything. "Mrs. Rodriguez, your husband is gone." But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part came 3 days later when my own son looked me dead in the eye and said, "Mom, don't dream of touching Dad's $32 million estate. It all belongs to me now." If you want to hear stories about real families and the battles they fight behind closed doors, please hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from around the world. Your support means everything to us here at Madam Susan Stories. My name is Isabella Rodriguez, and I'm 61 years old. For 41 years, I stood beside my husband Carlos as we built our real estate empire in Phoenix, Arizona. We started with nothing but a small apartment building and grew it into Rodriguez Properties, worth $32 million in assets across the Southwest. Carlos was a construction foreman turned business mogul. I was a teacher who became his partner in every deal, every decision, every dream. The day of Carlos's funeral felt like the world had stopped spinning. The blazing Arizona sun beat down on hundreds of people dressed in black. Our mansion in Scottsdale overflowed with guests. Business partners, friends, family members, all came to honor the man who built an empire from dust and determination. But my son Marcus had different plans. Marcus is 39 years old, tall and handsome like his father, but where Carlos had patience, Marcus had greed. He works as a financial advisor and thinks he knows everything about money. Beside him stood his wife Jessica, 36, a marketing executive with sharp eyes and an even sharper tongue. While I accepted condolences and tried to grieve my husband, they moved through the crowd like they already owned the place. I heard Jessica whisper to a guest, "Of course, Marcus will take over everything now." Carlos always said the business was meant for him. That night, after everyone left, I found myself alone in Carlos's study. His picture sat on the desk, his kind eyes looking back at me. "Carlos," I whispered, "I promise I'll protect what we built together. I won't let them destroy your legacy." From the hallway, I heard Marcus talking to Jessica. "It's all mine now," he said with a cold laugh. "She doesn't know the first thing about running a business. Once I get control, we can finally make some real money." The words cut through me like a knife. My own son, planning to push me aside before his father was even cold in the ground. If hearing a son plot against his grieving mother right after his father's funeral doesn't make you hit subscribe, then comment below and explain why betrayal like this doesn't break your heart. In the days that followed, Marcus visited often, but not to comfort me. He came with papers, documents he said I needed to sign to make things easier. Jessica would smile sweetly while Marcus explained how complicated business matters were, how I should let him handle everything. "Mom, you should focus on healing," Marcus said one evening, his voice dripping with fake concern. "Dad always planned for me to run the company. You know you're not cut out for this world. Let me take the burden off your shoulders." Jessica nodded, her voice like honey hiding poison. "Isabella, you deserve peace in your golden years. Let Marcus handle the stress. He was born for this." They thought I was weak. They thought grief had made me helpless. They were wrong. One night, I couldn't sleep. The house felt empty without Carlos's presence. As I walked down the hall, I saw light coming from under the study door. I should have kept walking, but something made me stop and listen. "She's falling apart." Jessica's voice was cruel and calculating. "Look at her. She barely eats, barely speaks. One gentle push and she'll sign anything we put in front of her." Marcus laughed, a sound that made my blood run cold. "You're right. She's always been soft. Dad protected her from the real world. Now she's lost without him. I just need to convince her that signing over control is for her own good." "We'll draft something clean," Jessica continued. "Something that gives you full power while making her think she's still involved. She'll never know what hit her." "The old lady will probably thank me," Marcus said with disgust. She'll think I'm being the good son, protecting her from stress. Meanwhile, we'll finally be able to run this empire the right way. I pressed my hand against the wall to steady myself. My own son was plotting to steal everything Carlos and I had built. The boy I raised, the child I loved, was planning to betray me in my darkest hour. She caught her son scheming to steal everything from her. If you can watch that moment and still not subscribe, then tell us in the comments why family betrayal doesn't shake you to your core. But they underestimated me. If they wanted to play games, I could play too. The next morning, I called our family lawyer, David Chen. David had worked with Carlos for over 25 years. His office in downtown Phoenix was filled with legal books and memories of successful deals. When I walked in, his face showed both sympathy and concern. "Isabella," he said, taking my hands gently. "I've been meaning to call you. How are you holding up?" "David, I need to know something. Did Carlos leave any special instructions? Anything about what I should do now?" David studied my face carefully, then opened his desk drawer. He pulled out a sealed envelope marked with Carlos's handwriting. "Yes, Isabella. Carlos gave me this letter months before he passed. He said you might need guidance if Marcus let greed cloud his judgment." My heart raced as David handed me the envelope. Carlos had known. Somehow, he had seen this coming. "Carlos suspected Marcus might try to take advantage of your grief," David continued. "He wanted you to be prepared. The reel will contain surprises that Marcus won't expect." I pressed the envelope to my chest, feeling Carlos's love even after death. "What kind of surprises?" "I can't reveal everything before the official reading," David said carefully, but Carlos designed tests for Marcus. He wanted to see if his son would choose honor over greed. Unfortunately, Isabella, Marcus is failing those tests badly. I took a deep breath, feeling strength flow through me for the first time since the funeral. "David, I need your help. I need to protect what Carlos built, even if it means fighting my own son." "That's exactly what Carlos hoped you'd say," David replied with a small smile. "You're stronger than they realize, Isabella. That's your greatest weapon." Over the next weeks, I played the role Marcus expected. I let my shoulders slump, my voice shake, my hands tremble when I held documents. I acted like a grieving widow who couldn't handle business decisions. "Marcus," I said one morning over breakfast, "maybe you're right. Maybe I should let you handle some of your father's paperwork. Just simple things. I'm so tired these days." Marcus's eyes lit up with greedy excitement, though he tried to hide it. "Of course, Mom. I'll take care of everything. You shouldn't stress yourself." Jessica squeezed his arm, her smile wide with victory. "That's so wise, Isabella. Marcus is excellent with numbers. You can trust him completely." But while they celebrated their perceived victory, I was gathering evidence. I discovered that Marcus had been stealing from the company even before Carlos died. Fake invoices, double payments to shell companies, forged signatures on loan documents. He had been preparing to take over for months, bleeding money from the business while his father was dying. I also learned about Marcus's secret deal with a man named Vincent Torres, a shady developer known for cutting corners and breaking promises. Marcus had promised to sell our most valuable properties to Vincent at below-market prices in exchange for cash under the table. "The Rodriguez name will finally make me rich," I heard Marcus tell Vincent on a recorded phone call. "Once I get rid of the old lady, we can strip this company for parts and walk away millionaires." Vincent laughed. "Your father built something solid, but solid doesn't make quick money. We'll tear it down and rebuild it our way." My hands shook with rage as I listened to them plot to destroy Carlos's legacy. But I controlled my anger and kept planning. The day of the will reading arrived like a storm. The library in our Scottsdale mansion was transformed into a courtroom. I sat at the head of the long oak table, my back straight, my face calm. David Chen sat beside me with his papers neatly stacked. Across from me, Marcus and Jessica looked confident, almost smug. Marcus wore his most expensive suit, and Jessica had dressed like she was already the queen of the empire. They whispered to each other, pointing at properties they planned to sell, discussing trips they would take with their newfound wealth. Also present were key members of our company's board of directors, plus several major investors who had worked with Carlos for years. I had invited them specifically, though Marcus didn't know why yet. David cleared his throat, and the room fell silent. By order of the late Carlos Rodriguez, I will now read his final will and testament. This document has been properly witnessed, notarized, and sealed by the court. Marcus leaned back in his chair, his arms crossed with satisfaction. Jessica gripped his hand, both of them barely able to contain their excitement. David began with standard provisions: money for loyal employees, donations to charity, instructions for maintaining certain properties. Marcus tapped his fingers impatiently, clearly annoyed by these delays. Finally, David reached the main section. The atmosphere in the room shifted as everyone leaned forward to hear Carlos's final wishes. Regarding Rodriguez properties and all associated assets, properties, and holdings, David announced in a clear voice, Carlos Rodriguez hereby names his wife, Isabella Rodriguez, as sole owner and chief executive officer of the entire estate. When $32 million didn't go to the greedy son, but to the woman who built it all, justice was served. If you don't subscribe right now, then explain in the comments why you'd ignore a fight this powerful for dignity. The silence was deafening. I watched Marcus's face change from confidence to confusion to shock. His mouth fell open. Jessica's grip on his hand tightened until her knuckles turned white. David continued, without mercy. Furthermore, Carlos Rodriguez leaves his son Marcus Rodriguez a trust fund of $125,000 to be administered by Isabella Rodriguez at her discretion. This trust is conditional upon Marcus demonstrating responsible behavior, honest employment, and a commitment to rebuilding his character. Marcus shot to his feet, so fast his chair crashed backward. "This is impossible," he shouted, his face turning red with rage. "I built this company too. I worked for this. You can't just give everything to her." Jessica stood beside him, her eyes blazing with fury. "This is fraud." Carlos loved Marcus. He would never cut off his own son like this. David's voice remained steady and professional. Carlos knew exactly what he was doing. He prepared this will months in advance, knowing that Marcus might choose greed over family loyalty. Sadly, Marcus proved his father's concerns were justified. "You poisoned him against me," Marcus screamed at me, pointing his finger like a weapon. "You filled his head with lies. You manipulated a dying man." I finally spoke, my voice calm and cold as winter. "I didn't need to poison anything, Marcus. Your actions spoke louder than any words I could have said." But Marcus wasn't finished. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a thick stack of papers bound with a red ribbon. His hand shook as he held them up. "This is the real will," he declared desperately. "The one Dad wrote before she got to him. This is what he really wanted." The board members looked at each other with raised eyebrows. Several investors shifted uncomfortably in their seats. I remained calm. "Please, Marcus, show everyone your document. Let's all see what you claim your father really wanted." Marcus's confidence flickered, but pride pushed him forward. He thrust the papers toward the board members. "This document shows that Dad intended for me to run Rodriguez Properties. He knew I was the only one capable of growing the business." One of the investors, a woman named Patricia Hayes, examined the papers carefully. Her face grew troubled. "Marcus, this looks like the draft will you showed me last month when you asked me to invest in your restaurant project." Another board member spoke up. "Yes, you used this same document to convince us to sign letters of intent for your business deals." Marcus's face went pale. "That's because it's legitimate. Dad really did want me to inherit everything." David stood and opened a new folder. As the estate's legal counsel, I must inform everyone present that the document Marcus is displaying is a discarded draft with no legal standing whatsoever. More importantly, Marcus used this worthless draft to secure business agreements that carry serious financial penalties. The room erupted. Board members stood, voices rising in anger and disbelief. You used a fake will to trick us into contracts? Patricia demanded. The penalty clauses in those agreements total over $5 million, another investor shouted. David's voice cut through the chaos. Furthermore, we have evidence that Marcus forged his mother's signature on multiple loan applications, using her as an unwilling guarantor for his failed business ventures. This constitutes criminal fraud. Marcus stumbled backward, his face white as paper. No, that's not right. I was protecting the company. I was securing capital for growth. You were stealing, David said flatly. From the company, from your mother, and from every investor you deceived with false promises. Jessica looked at Marcus as if seeing him for the first time. Her face crumpled with the realization that she had tied herself to a sinking ship. You told me everything was guaranteed, she whispered. You said your father had already signed the papers. Marcus turned to her desperately. Jessica, listen to me. This is all a setup. They're lying to turn you against me. But Jessica was already backing away from him, her eyes wide with horror. You lied to me. You lied to everyone. What have you done to us? The board members continued shouting questions and demands. The investors spoke of lawsuits and criminal charges. David raised his hand for order, but the damage was done. I stood slowly, my voice cutting through the noise like a blade. Marcus, your father didn't take away your inheritance. You gambled it away with your greed and dishonesty. You didn't protect his legacy. You tried to destroy it for quick money. Marcus looked around the room desperately, seeing only angry faces and closed doors. For the first time, he seemed to understand the depth of his fall. Jessica gathered her purse with shaking hands. I can't be part of this, she said, her voice breaking. I won't go down with you, Marcus. I'm done. She walked out without looking back, leaving Marcus alone to face the consequences of his choices. The room slowly emptied as board members and investors left to consult their lawyers and reassess their positions. When the last guest was gone, only Marcus and I remained in the library. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. My son, who had been so confident just an hour earlier, now looked broken and defeated. I reached into my purse and pulled out an envelope I had been saving for this moment. Carlos's handwriting on the front was clear and strong. For Marcus, when he understands. This is from your father, I said, placing the letter on the table between us. He wrote it for you, hoping you would choose a different path. Marcus's hands trembled as he opened the envelope and began to read. His eyes filled with tears as he absorbed his father's final words. My son, I pray that you are reading this because you have learned that true wealth comes from building, not taking. Power earned through deception is no power at all. You must now choose whether to become a man of honor or remain a slave to greed. I believe you can choose correctly, but the decision is yours alone. Marcus's sob echoed through the empty room. He knew, he whispered. Dad knew what I was becoming. Yes, I said quietly. He knew, and he still hoped you would change. Even now, Marcus, it's not too late to choose differently. But Marcus's shame quickly turned back to anger. This is all your fault, he snarled. You turned him against me. You stole what was rightfully mine. I shook my head sadly. Marcus, your father gave you every chance to prove yourself worthy of his trust. You chose greed instead. Now you must live with the consequences. The next morning brought the sound I had been dreading. Police cars in our driveway, officers at our front door. Vincent Torres had been arrested for fraud in connection with another development project, and he had given Marcus's name to reduce his own charges. Marcus Rodriguez, the lead officer, announced, You are under arrest for fraud, forgery, and conspiracy to commit embezzlement. When greed finally led to handcuffs, she stood strong. If you don't smash subscribe after that, then I want to see you in the comments explaining why you'd look away from justice this raw. Marcus tried to run, tried to argue, tried to deny everything. But the evidence was overwhelming. The fake documents, the forged signatures, the recorded phone calls with Vincent, the stolen money from company accounts. It was all there in black and white. As they led him away in handcuffs, Marcus turned to me one last time. "Please, Mom," he begged. "You can stop this. You have the power to make this go away." I looked at my son, my heart breaking for the boy he used to be. "Marcus, I warned you this would happen. Your father warned you. We both wanted you to choose honor over greed, but you wouldn't listen. Now you must face justice." The trial came swiftly. The courthouse in Phoenix was packed with reporters, investors, and curious onlookers. Marcus sat at the defendant's table looking pale and thin, no longer the confident businessman who had once commanded respect. The evidence against him was devastating. Financial records showing systematic theft, recorded conversations proving conspiracy, forged documents bearing his handwriting. His lawyer tried to paint him as a victim of pressure and expectations, but the facts spoke louder than any excuse. The judge's verdict was harsh but fair. "Mr. Rodriguez, your actions have caused tremendous harm to investors, employees, and your own family. You have betrayed trusts that took decades to build, and you have tarnished a respected name in this community." Marcus was sentenced to 5 years in prison and ordered to pay full restitution to everyone he had defrauded. The total amount exceeded $8 million, money he would never be able to repay. As the gavel fell, Marcus collapsed into his chair. Jessica, who had attended the trial, stood and walked out without a backward glance. She filed for divorce the next day and moved to Seattle to start a new life far from the scandal. The aftermath was swift and merciless. The business newspapers painted Marcus as the fallen prince who destroyed his father's empire through greed and stupidity. Former friends avoided him. Former business partners sued him. His name became synonymous with failure and fraud. Meanwhile, I took control of Rodriguez Properties and began the long process of rebuilding what Marcus had damaged. The company survived, but it took years to restore the trust and reputation that Carlos had spent a lifetime building. One day, about 6 months after the trial, I encountered someone unexpected. I was having lunch at a small cafe in Phoenix when I saw a familiar face at a corner table. It was Marcus's son, my grandson Tyler. Tyler is 16 now, a good kid who had been caught in the middle of his parents' disaster. He looked up as I approached, his eyes uncertain but hopeful. "Grandma Isabella," he said quietly, "I didn't know you came here." I sat down across from him, studying the young man who looked so much like Carlos. "How are you doing, Tyler? This must be very difficult for you." He nodded, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm living with my aunt in Tucson now. Mom, she doesn't want anything to do with the Rodriguez name anymore. And Dad." He trailed off, unable to finish. "Your father made terrible choices," I said gently. "But that doesn't define who you are or who you can become." Tyler's eyes brightened slightly. "I've been thinking about that a lot, Grandma. I want to be different than him. I want to build things the right way, like Great-Grandpa Carlos did." I felt a surge of pride and hope. "Then that's exactly what you should do, Tyler. Your great-grandfather believed that every man has the chance to choose his own path. You can choose to learn from your father's mistakes instead of repeating them." When a grandson promises to rebuild his family's legacy with honesty, it's proof that love can outlast greed. If you don't hit subscribe after that, then drop a comment telling us why you'd walk away from hope this powerful. Over the following months, Tyler and I began to rebuild our relationship. He was smart, hardworking, and most importantly, he understood the value of honesty. I started teaching him about the business, showing him how Carlos had built everything from nothing through hard work and integrity. "Grandma," he said one day as we walked through one of our apartment complexes, "I promise I'll never be like my father. I'll earn everything I get, and I'll make you proud." I squeezed his shoulder, feeling Carlos's presence in the boy's determined voice. "You already make me proud, Tyler, just by choosing to be better." Meanwhile, Marcus served his time in prison, and from what I heard, it was not easy for him. The other inmates didn't respect white-collar criminals, especially those who had stolen from their own families. He was attacked twice and spent most of his sentence in protective custody. When he was finally released after 4 years for good behavior, he was a changed man. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something that looked like humility. He moved to a small apartment in Tucson, far from Phoenix and the memories of his former life. He found work at a construction company, the same type of job his father had started with decades earlier. The pay was low, the work was hard, and his coworkers didn't know about his past. For the first time in his life, Marcus had to earn respect through sweat and effort rather than family connections. One evening, about a year after his release, he showed up at my door. He looked older, weathered by prison and honest work. His clothes were simple, his hands roughened by labor. "Mom," he said, his voice barely audible, "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I wanted you to know that I understand now. I understand what Dad was trying to teach me." I studied his face, looking for signs of the old manipulation, the old lies. But all I saw was exhaustion and genuine remorse. "What do you understand, Marcus?" I asked. "That everything I thought I deserved, I had to earn. That respect isn't inherited, it's built one day at a time. That I threw away something precious for something worthless." His voice broke. "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry for everything I put you through." I didn't immediately forgive him. Forgiveness, I had learned, was not the same as trust. Trust had to be rebuilt through actions, not words. "Marcus," I said carefully, "I'm glad you're learning these lessons. But learning and proving are different things. If you want to rebuild our relationship, it will take time and consistency." He nodded, understanding that this was not a quick fix. "I know. I just wanted you to know that I'm trying to be the man Dad wanted me to be, even if it's too late." He finally admitted his greed had destroyed everything. If you can hear a broken son beg his mother for forgiveness and still not subscribe, then I expect you in the comments explaining why redemption means nothing to you. Over the next 2 years, Marcus proved his commitment to change. He worked steadily at the construction company, earning promotions through merit rather than connections. He attended therapy to understand his addiction to quick wealth and easy success. Most importantly, he began to rebuild his relationship with Tyler. Father and son met regularly for lunch, awkward conversations that slowly grew into genuine connection. Tyler was cautious, but open to the possibility that his father could change. "Dad's different now," Tyler told me after one of these meetings. "He actually listens when I talk. He asks about my schoolwork, my friends, my dreams. He never did that before." Meanwhile, Rodriguez Properties continued to grow under my leadership. We expanded into sustainable housing development, honoring Carlos's memory by building homes that would last for generations. Tyler joined the company part-time while finishing high school, learning the business from the ground up just as his great-grandfather would have wanted. The business press took notice of our recovery, writing articles about how I had saved the company from destruction and built it into something even stronger than before. They called it a remarkable turnaround, but I knew the truth. It was simply the result of returning to the values Carlos had always taught: hard work, honest dealing, and respect for everyone you do business with. On the 3rd anniversary of Carlos's death, I held a memorial service at our home. Tyler was there, now 19 and preparing for college. Marcus came too, standing quietly in the back, no longer demanding attention but simply honoring his father's memory. As I spoke about Carlos's legacy, I looked around at the faces of the people who had truly known him, employees who had worked for him for decades, business partners who trusted his word above any contract, family members who remembered his kindness and generosity. Carlos Rodriguez built more than a company, I said. He built a standard of integrity that will outlive all of us. He believed that every person has the power to choose honor over convenience, truth over profit, family over greed. Some of us learned these lessons easily. Others had to learn them the hard way. But the important thing is that we all have the chance to choose correctly every single day. After the service, as guests were leaving, Marcus approached me. He looked nervous but determined. "Mom," he said, "I've been accepted to a business program at the community college. I want to learn how to do things right this time. I'm not asking for money or help getting in. I just wanted you to know that I'm still trying to change." I nodded, feeling a small spark of the old maternal pride. "That's good, Marcus. Education is always worthwhile, especially when you're humble enough to learn." He smiled slightly, the first genuine smile I had seen from him in years. "Tyler's been helping me with the application essays. He's a good kid, isn't he?" "Yes," I agreed. "He is. He's choosing to be better than his circumstances, just like his great-grandfather did." As Marcus walked away, I felt Carlos's presence strongly. I could almost hear his voice. "Isabella, you kept your promise. You protected what we built, and you gave our son the chance to become a man." Today, 5 years after that terrible will reading, life has found a new balance. Rodriguez Properties is stronger than ever. Tyler is in college studying business and engineering, and Marcus is slowly rebuilding his life on foundations of honesty rather than entitlement. I'm 66 now, with silver hair and lines around my eyes that speak of battles fought and won. I still miss Carlos every day, but I no longer carry the weight of protecting his legacy alone. Tyler has proven himself worthy of inheriting not just money, but the values that created the wealth in the first place. Marcus will probably never fully regain the trust he lost, but he has gained something more valuable: self-respect earned through honest work. He manages a small construction crew now, and his workers respect him because he works as hard as anyone and never asks them to do something he wouldn't do himself. The $32 million estate that Marcus once thought he deserved remains intact, growing and providing jobs for hundreds of families across Arizona. But more importantly, the lessons Carlos tried to teach have finally been learned. Sometimes, when I'm alone in the evening, I sit in Carlos's old study and read the letters he left behind. One passage always brings tears to my eyes. "Isabella, if you are reading this, then you have faced the hardest test a mother can face. You have chosen justice over comfort, truth over peace. You have protected not just money, but principles. I am proud of you, and I know our children will be better people because of your strength." The greatest inheritance isn't money or property. It's the knowledge that when tested, you chose to do what was right rather than what was easy. That's the legacy Carlos left me, and it's the legacy I'll pass on to Tyler and, hopefully, to the grandchildren he'll give me someday. Marcus's betrayal nearly destroyed our family, but in the end, it revealed who we really were: people who could lose everything and still choose to rebuild with honor. That's worth more than any amount of money, and it's a lesson that will echo through generations of Rodriguez children yet to be born. The war for Carlos's legacy is over. Truth won. Justice prevailed. And a family that was nearly torn apart by greed has found its way back to love, one honest choice at a time. As I finish this story, I want you to remember that families face these battles every day. Money can reveal the worst in people, but it can also reveal their capacity for growth and redemption. The choice is always ours to make. Will we choose honor or greed? Will we build or destroy? Will we protect what matters most, or will we sacrifice it for what seems easier? Carlos Rodriguez knew that true wealth isn't what you accumulate, but what you leave behind in the hearts and character of the people you love. That's the real $32 million inheritance, and it's one that can never be stolen, lost, or destroyed. Thank you for listening to our story. If it moved you or taught you something valuable, please share it with others who might need to hear it. Sometimes the most important lessons come from the hardest experiences, and we're all stronger when we learn from each other's trials and triumphs.